Welcome, welcome. So today the topic before me is demystifying mental health. I'm Antonia Soji. I'm a general physician. I'm a mental health therapist in private practice. So by way of outline, this is the way we'll go. The intro, then we define what mental health is and what is not. The tripartite human. We discuss the relationship between emotions, thoughts, beliefs. Then we examine beliefs. And we discuss the features of a good mental health, features of an impaired mental health, then the common risk factor for mental health disorders, then how family dysfunction can breed an impaired mental health. Then we would discuss how to build a resilient mind and, of course, come to a conclusion and leave some room for questions and comments. By way of introduction, health is a term that oftentimes it could be difficult to define because many definitions have arisen over time. Webster Dictionary defined it as the condition of being sound in the body, in the mind, and in the spirit, and especially free from physical disease or pain. And Oxford Dictionary would define it as soundness of body or mind, the condition in which its functions are duly and efficiently discharged. And there's still another definition that says health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. That was a WHO definition. So now, as to mental health, we've defined health in general. What is mental health? It's the capacity of an individual to think, to feel, and to act in ways that enhance their ability to enjoy life and deal with challenges. Please note the three: must be able to feel, must be able to think, must be able to act in a way that will enhance their ability to enjoy life and deal with challenges. These three components must be there. It's a positive sense of emotional and spiritual well being that respects the importance of the individual's culture, equity, social justice, interconnection, because we're interconnected human beings, and of course, personal dignity. And what organization will define mental health as a state of well being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities and they're able to cope with normal stress of life. They can also work productively and they're able to make a contribution to their community. Now, human being is tripartite. There is the mind, there's the body, there's the spirit. For you to say an individual is whole, is healthy, these three components must be all individually and must work together. Matter of fact, the perfect location that an individual wants to be is right here, where both the mind, the body, and the spirit work together. As such, someone with a broken mind with some mental health disorder, you can't really say such an individual is healthy. Even if physically they look muscular, there's no physical manifestation, but they have some mental health disorders or mental health challenges, such an individual is not said to be healthy. Now, what is mental health and what it is not? Mental health is real, just the same way physical health is real. It's not something that is all in your head. Because society in some places will say, she's just thinking it up. It's just manufacturing symptoms. No, it's not all in the head. Just the same way someone will not manufacture a broken bone. No one will manufacture depression. So it is as real as physical health is. That we cannot touch it the way we will touch the body parts doesn't make it less real. Then mental health is critical. Just the same way physical health is critical. You have to be in a tip-top shape to be able to perform your duties at work and at home. The same way, if something happens to the mind, the critical place of the mind begins to show because such an individual's ability to function will be hampered. Mental health is not a sign of weakness. Someone suffering from depression, from anxiety, from psychosis, from bipolar disorder, it is not a sign of sickness, of weakness. It is a disorder the same way hypertension, cancers are physical disorders. Mental health is important to all. Everyone has mental health, just the same way everyone has physical health. It is not a taboo. It's not a taboo because people have some mental challenges. There's a stigma around it. So they want to keep it down. They don't want to go out for help. They don't want to reach out to people because society has come to stigmatize mental health. No, it shouldn't be. It's important for all. Everybody have it as a habit. Everybody should strive towards being mentally fit. Then it's closely linked to someone's mental and physical health. Truth is, as your mental health dips, your physical health will also dip. If you remember the slide I showed you about the connection between the physical health, the mental health, and the spiritual health, once one of it is affected, it will affect the other two. Then it changes over time. You could be really super happy now, then the following day you will just out of the blues, you can't really get it. It's still normal. Just the same way you will not be so healthy and be able to run a 100 meter race every single day. There are days that your body is really tired and you can't run. So mental health is slowly changing over time. Then it's an aspect of every human being. Everybody has it. And it's something that needs to be taken care of. Just the same way you'll be advised to take care of your physical health, exercise, diet, and the likes. They are both positive and negative mental health. The same way they are both positive and negative physical health. And it fluctuates. The same way physical health will fluctuate. Someone who could have a febrile condition today, could be malaria, could be pneumonia, could be any of such. Then by the time you see them in 2 weeks' time, they are super healthy. So it could fluctuate from being not too happy to struggling with depression, then to some other things. And now, truth is, it is more complicated than physical health because physical health, many times we can see, we can touch, we can examine. There are some biological tests that can be carried out that makes it easy to come to a diagnosis. Mental health could be a bit more complex than that. So now, what it is not something that an individual will choose to have. No one will choose to have depression. No one will choose to be psychotic. No one will choose to have anxiety. No one will choose to be suicidal. It is a disorder, the same way cancer is. It is a disorder, the same way diabetes is. Then it's not something to think about only when everything feels broken. We don't eat the worst of foods naturally and then consider going healthy when we begin to have some physical manifestation. That is an abnormality. You think of your mental health ahead of time. Proactive is the goal. Prevention is always better than a cure, whether it comes to physical health or mental health. Then it's not interchangeable with mental illness. Because one funny thing I hear is when people say there's a mental health summit or conference, and some people want to show up, then they have friends and colleagues and neighbors asking them, what is wrong with you? What are you going to do in a mental health seminar? If a physical health seminar is called up, people don't have qualms about showing up. But once it's mental health, people already term it to mental illness. It's not the same thing. You can't interchange it. The same way you will not interchange physical health with physical illness. Then it's constantly changing, like I said, but it will not constantly feel good. You don't feel good physically all the time. You would not also feel good mentally all the time. And it's not something you can just snap out of, because they tell people who are depressed, who have anxiety, just get out of it. Just get out of the thoughts. You can snap out of it. You can't snap out of it. The same way you can't snap out of malaria overnight. You can't snap out of asthma overnight. You can't snap out of cancer overnight. These are also things that should be tended to by medical personnel, by mental health professionals, to get the individual out of that loop of challenge. then it is not stable. It fluctuates. The same way physical health is not stable. And it's not a manipulative attempt by the individual who suffers from a mental health disorder. It's not trying to manipulate the family. It's not trying to manipulate their place of work. The same way nobody would induce a fracture because they want to manipulate the family. It just doesn't sound reasonable. Still, on what it is and what it is not, it is important. Everyone has it, and we already said it's intrinsically linked to your physical health. It's on a continuum, it's on a spectrum. I'll come to discuss that later. And it's worth making time for because it's part of being human. It's something we need to look after. It could be either positive or negative. It is changeable, it is complex, it is real. Now, what it is not a sign of weakness. I said that earlier. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Someone with a fracture will not be ashamed that they have a fracture. So having a case of depression, having a case of anxiety, bipolar disorder, psychosis, schizophrenia is nothing to be ashamed of. You get it treated, you own up, you rally around, get people who can rally around you to give you support. The same way people will do that for someone who has a fracture. It's not all in your mind, and it's not always something negative. It's not something that an individual will decide to have. It is not something to think about only when it is broken. You don't think about your health only when you begin to feel sick. At least you should not, we shouldn't. Some people do that, but that's not the norm. Then it's not an interchangeable term of mental illness. I already said that it doesn't feel good all the time. And it's not something you can snap out of. It's not something that you can easily fix. It's not fake news. It is true. Now, I mentioned mental health spectrum. Truth is, every individual you meet is on one of the spectrums. Is on one of the spectrums. And sometimes we oscillate from one to the other. So I will start with the worst of the worst. This is when you say this one has a mental health crisis. They are very anxious. They have very low mood. They have been absent from work, from school, because of what is happening in their mind, because of the mental challenge they're going through. They are physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted. They sleep very poorly. And some of them could even go so bad as to experience weight loss because now they're having challenges with eating. Now, for someone who is struggling, some symptoms that is expected is the individual could be anxious, could be depressed, could be tired, could have poor performance, could have poor sleep, but they will still be able to sleep, almost like a fitful sleep. Appetite could also be bad. And for someone who is surviving, they're still able to go about the normal daily activities, but they're overwhelmed by worries. They are always nervous. They have more days that they are sad than happy. They're generally irritable. They can make a mountain out of a molehill. Of course, they also have trouble sleeping. So, like, difficulty sleeping is across board for most mental health disorders, except for depression, where they could even now sleep too much. Then they're easily distracted. They could be withdrawn. For someone who you would say is thriving mentally, just the same way you say someone is thriving physically, what would you expect? They're generally positive, they are calm, they're able to perform to the best of their ability, they sleep well, they eat normally. When you say this individual is in a tip-top shape mentally, they are cheerful, they are joyful, they are energetic, they have a flow about life. They have a flow about life. They just live in the moment. Things just roll off their shoulders. Those are the people that post it. They don't have worries. Then they're highly performant. They perform, they have high performance. They can literally do 10 people's work in a day and do it with all of the joy without any residual negative emotion. And they're full of potential. Now to emotions, thoughts, and belief. Emotions, they are conscious mental reactions. Example is fear, example is anger, example is sadness, and they are subjectively experienced. So it may not be objective, but it's subjective. And there are oftentimes strong feelings that are directed towards a specific object, towards a specific experience, and they are typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. Now, emotions are ideally should be short-lived feelings that come from a known cause. As I said, ideally, but when there's a disorder, it could be long and much longer than is expected, and they are oftentimes displayed through sudden physical body language and facial expressions such as smiling when happy, crying when sad. Emotions is normal, just the same way hunger is normal. Emotions are normal, just the same way hunger is normal. It's just the subjectivity of it that could benefit from an inquiry, an examination, just to re-examine again if the subjective thought that leads to the emotional reaction was really beneficial or could be re-examined. So these are the common emotions that human beings will display: happy, sad, angry, surprised, scared, disgusted. Most other emotions are subsets of this. If someone says, I felt terror. Terror is fear. Someone says, I was embarrassed. Embarrassed is a subset of sadness, a subset of shame. A subset of sadness, a subset of shame. Now, mental health is the hardware. If you want to check the relation between mental health and emotional health, mental health is the hardware, emotional health is the software. What do I mean by this? The more you understand your emotions, the more your emotions are within your control, the more your emotions are more objective, not subjective, because of the stories and interpretation we have told ourselves, the healthier we will be mentally. And there's an entity called cognitive triangle where there is that interplay of rules and reactions between our thoughts, which would influence our feelings, which will influence our behavior. And it keeps going on like that, and it will eventually become a vicious cycle. Take for instance, you are at the motor park and someone comes in, just a random person screaming at you. There could be a lot of possibilities for such a behavior. Could it be that he had a very bad day? Could it be that he's mentally ill? Could it be that he's hungry? Could it be that he's in debt? Could it be that the family is in crisis? Could it be that he has a child who just died? I could go on and on like that. But then if I have my own automatic thought of, how dare he treat me like that? Does he think I'm not important? Chances are, of course, I'll have emotional feelings of anger and sadness. And by the time I would respond, the behavior would be an aftermath of the emotional experience I had. Now let's backpedal a bit. Imagine this same individual comes in screaming at me, and my first thought is, oh, I wonder what could be going on with this individual. It really must be experiencing a very difficult day. That thought does not fit my system with negative emotions. I don't have negative feelings. Chances are my heart may be more open, I may be more considerate, and even offer him some words of comfort. Please calm down, calm down. What's the problem? How may I help you? Now, it is the same stimulus, but tangential reaction, tangential responses. Why? Because the thoughts that led to my feelings, that led to my emotions, that led to my behavior, they are different. That's what I mean by cognitive triangle. Is worthwhile if we are aware of this triangle and see how they interplay and almost influence our lives on a daily basis. Still now on the emotions, the thoughts, and the belief. Truth is, there's an entity called core belief. We'll come to that eventually. Most people, everybody, not most people, they have one form of core belief or the other. It's just that some people have been able to graduate to translate their negative core belief into a positive one. And our core beliefs are usually formed from our family of origin. There are ways we've been raised that ingrain thoughts of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not loved, the world is not a safe place. Could also be formed from friends, their economic status. Someone from a very poor background that they had to beg people to be able to get their daily need met. A child would probably grow from such a background with thoughts of we are not good enough. And it will take some intentionality to be able to reframe that core belief. Otherwise, it will just keep running their life. Then the level of education could also influence the core beliefs. Environment, media, especially for little children who are more exposed to media than the older generation. Media can really, really influence their core belief. And of course, our core belief many times would influence our emotional reactions because our core beliefs will drive our thoughts. We have those automatic thoughts that is at the background of some core beliefs that we have. Then emotions usually will be triggered by our identifying with this core belief. Now, the the incident I narrated of that man at the motor park who came in screaming at me. If I'm settled in myself and I don't have core beliefs of maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not a wonderful person, maybe I've done bad things, it will just be that he is just manifesting. People are just being people. Nothing gets latched on me. And as such, I'll be able to respond to such an individual from that level. So that explains how our identification with our core beliefs can impact the emotional experiences we would have. Then, of course, thoughts would usually further reinforce these core beliefs, and these thoughts would usually sound like should, shouldn't. Nothing should be done, nothing shouldn't be done. But when we place that word on many thoughts, we we further reinforce some negative thoughts, beliefs that we've already had about certain things. And now, the adult brain is primarily in alpha state, and it will interest you to know that 95% of the time is spent in subconscious programming. So, this programming that has been downloaded from childhood, these core beliefs, these habits, philosophy about life, philosophy about faith, philosophy about the world, they've been downloaded. Now they are in the subconscious. And 95% of the adult time is spent pulling things out from this subconscious. Now, these are not things that people are even consciously aware that they are doing. It's been ingrained so deeply that it takes some intentionality, some level of mindfulness, and becoming aware to know that so this is the habit that has been running my life. And when there's that saying that says our beliefs will ultimately create a reality. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. When it comes to an adult, most of those subconscious thoughts are not conscious, not intentional, not really in our awareness. We just know we are doing things because these patterns have been ingrained from childhood. So that's how core beliefs are formed. So how can childhood trauma create painful core beliefs? Some common childhood reality, not all, because childhood reality are varied, is a child who was made to feel like he or she was too much, too emotional, too needy. Those are the kids that get told you're too sensitive, you cry a lot, you complain a lot, you are a lot, you are too much. Such an individual could grow up to have a core belief of I am too hard to love. No one is ever going to want me like this. So what do? They begin to suppress their own emotional feelings, their own desires, their own needs, just so that they can be acceptable. And such an individual may eventually grow up to suffer from things like depression because most emotions are deeply suppressed because that's the template they had in life. Even as grown-ups, many times they will not speak up for themselves. They would just let things slide, will seldomly complain, would not want to make trouble, would just want to take things as it is. Then parents or caregivers who were very critical or they displayed conditional love. Those will be parents that you don't know when the next shoe will drop. Those will be parents that you literally cannot do anything right. Those will be parents that you would only get praised when you've been picture perfect. All the grades are perfect. You are well dressed and you look superbly neat. Excellence is the only thing that is allowed at home. Such a child will grow up to be an adult who may have a core belief of I'm not worthy of love. Because come to think of it, love for them as children was purely conditional. Love is not meant to be conditional for children. They are messed up, they've done well, you still love them, even while you're correct. And such an individual could also grow up with another core belief of nothing I ever do is good enough. So they have a core belief of I am not good enough. And that's oftentimes a byproduct of having an critical parent, an authoritarian parent whose word is the law. You don't question. Daddy comes into the living room, everybody disappears. So that even till their adulthood, they pick their parents' call with so much fear and trepidation. Those will be the adults that will call their parents and tell them, I am at home right now, even though they are not at home. Why would you need to lie to your parents as an adult? Because it's been ingrained in you from childhood that whatever you do will not be good enough. So we may as well do what will make them happy, what will make them accept me. So, which is why I said 95% of our behaviors as adults in that alpha state, alpha brain state, is from the subconscious. You're not really aware you're doing it. Because come to think of it, why would you lie as a 25-year-old to your parents that you're at home when you're not at home? You will not be flogged, you will not be scolded, you're already a grown individual. But there's still that subconscious pattern that has been ingrained from childhood playing out in the adult body. Then when parents are inconsistent, they show up inconsistently. So you almost cannot rely on them. Today they're really super kind, super generous, super patient. Then the next day they fly off the handle. So a child grows up with a feeling of, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect. I don't know when the next shoe can drop. And the core belief some of these children and now adults will have is, I am unsafe. Because the parents are highly unpredictable. They could also come to believe that I have to do everything on my own. Mommy is not there to be relied on. Daddy is not there to be relied on. As I may as well know that at this point, if I want anything done, I get it done on my own. Those are people who find it very difficult to delegate. Those are the ones who are the perfectionists. Those who have the core belief of not being good enough to are oftentimes perfectionistic. It's just that core belief, it's just that fear that is running their life. They don't want to delegate because they are scared that this individual may be inconsistent and then trigger the old childhood wound. So they want to do everything themselves. Then when parents are physically abusive or emotionally neglectful, such an individual will grow up with shame. And it could also grow up with a sense of I am bad. You may come across some children that the more you beat them, the worse they get. It's because the core belief has been ingrained. There's nothing I do that will not attract punishment. I may as well do it and please myself. I may as well score myself as being bad and do all the bad things I want to do. Then they could also have a core belief of my needs will cause people to hurt me or I am too much. Still on the development of core belief, I said earlier that it would generally develop at an early age, from childhood to adolescence. And some contributing factors will be interaction with significant and influential individuals. That will be the parents and the guardians. That's the core, that's the first, that's most important. Once parents and guardians get it wrong, teachers and coaches will then be able to get it more wrong. If parents and guardians get it right, when teachers and coaches get it wrong, the parent and the guardians can right it at home. So the bedrock of anybody's mental health many times will start from childhood, will start from infancy, will start from the home. Then significant life traumas like traumatic experiences, successes could be both positive or negative, could ingrain both positive or negative core belief. A child who tops the class throughout from primary to secondary school would of course have a core belief of I am intelligent, I am bad, I am smart. There could be some other things happening in the house, being physically abused, but in spite of all the bad things that are happening, this child still grows up to really be that intelligent and tops the class. You can't beat that core belief, I am smart. There could be some other associated negative core belief, but that positive core belief stands as an anchor guiding them through life. Then genetics and biological vulnerability, intelligence, a child who has some intellectual challenge, they come to believe that I'm not smart, which is not true because there are 9 levels of intellect. Logic is just one, language is just one, mathematical is one, musical is one, psychomotor is one, interpersonal is one. So a child who struggles with academic learning and has been ingrained in the mind that you're dull, you're not intelligent, grows up to be an adult who feels, why bother? After all, I'm dull. But this could be a world renowned dancer in the making, and all the parents needed to do was just um, see the area of strength and see where they can sharpen so that this child's innate intellect can still come to shine. Then temperament can also influence core belief. Then specific skills and lack of, like I said earlier, most of our core beliefs are formed in childhood. And our childhood experiences will change. It will change how we see ourselves and how we interact with the world. A child who gets beaten every single day at home by the parents. The first belief is I am not safe. The first belief is I am bad. The belief again is um, I can get in trouble anytime. And of course, the child would also come to have that belief of the world is a dangerous place. I am not safe in the world. So they could have inferiority complex. They could be shy, or they could be the bully in defense because if they perceive that the world is not safe, then they have to bully other people. Otherwise, they will be bullied. So there is already that counterattack that has been set in their mind. Then core beliefs would often lead to cognitive distortions that are inaccurate views of reality. When someone says, I am not good enough, that's a cognitive distortion. You may not be good enough at maths compared to someone else. You may not be good enough at music compared to someone else, but I bet you are good enough at something. It could be at arts, it could be at painting. But when we have that general core belief of I am not good enough, that core belief is like a pivot that even regardless of an individual's best effort, and many times it doesn't even allow them put in their best effort because they already feel, regardless of how well I do, it will not be good enough. So it will usually give cognitive distortions that are inaccurate views of reality. And again, it will impact every single aspect of our lives, including our career path. Some of the careers that people will choose is because their core beliefs will drive them into that. And the truth is, many of these are unconscious. If we're conscious of it, you can say, now I choose to stop. That's why we have the conscious mind, your intellect, your logic, your reasoning, and there's a subconscious mind that is deeply seated that just runs things underground. And we just see ourselves manifesting some of the undertones of the subconscious. And these beliefs will shape who we are, whether for positive or for negative. Truth is, we're not born with core beliefs because every human comes as a clean slate and it will develop through life experiences. And the strange thing is about core belief is that any information that contradicts them is oftentimes ignored. Like I said, subconscious is not logic. You can't think it out. You can't think that automatic reaction of someone asks you, are you okay? Are you okay is a question. But for us in Africa, are you okay? We automatically interpret it to mean I am not okay. So our defenses come up. And when you sit with it logically and you ask yourself, are you okay really is a question. It wasn't an insult. It wasn't an attack. Why did I then fly off with the handle and give the person a counter attack even though there was no attack ab initio? That's why I said it's strange. Core beliefs, oftentimes, they would resist any information that contradicts them till we have sat with them in therapy or by some intentional mindfulness practices. Could be journaling, could be meditation, could be prayer, could be a lot of things that then allow you to see, how do you see yourself? What core beliefs has been shaping your life for years past? Which ones are beneficial? Which ones do you need to drop? And the negative core beliefs, they are the root of most mental health suffering. There are four core negative core beliefs that will then have subsets. There's the first of I am not good enough. There's the second one of I am not lovable. There's the third one of I am unsafe. There's the fourth one of it is my fault. And someone with a core belief of I'm not good enough would also believe I'm a failure. I can never change. I will never succeed. Everyone else is better than me. There's no point in even trying. Then someone with a core belief of I'm not lovable may also believe nobody wants me. Nobody understands me. I bore people. People hate me. I'm better off alone. Excuse me. And someone with a core belief of it's my fault may also believe that I always get it wrong. I need help. I need to try harder. I have to help everyone. I am selfish to think about myself. I have to be perfect. And someone with a core belief of unsafe can also believe you can't trust anyone or anything. All you have is yourself. Just rely on yourself and on yourself alone. That's a cognitive distortion right there. You may not be able to trust some people, but it is not true that you can't trust anyone. You have to be in control to survive. So they are control freaks. They have to do things a certain way. They literally orchestrate everything in their life, in their place of work. They can't delegate. Then they could also believe that you should not be vulnerable. You can't let your guard down. So they are hypervigilant. They may suffer from anxiety and so many other mental health disorders. Truth is, anyone who has these core beliefs, most people do. It's just that many people have grown out of it. They've been able to rewrite, to reframe this core belief. They would have one form of mental health disorder or the other. Remember, we said mental health disorder is on a spectrum. Mental health is on a spectrum generally. So they may not be in complete crisis mode. They may just be struggling. It's a testament to some negative core belief that is seeping from the subconscious into their conscious mind and influencing their life, their perception of things, their emotional reaction, their behavior, and what they do with their life. So, what are the characteristics of a good mental health? Generally, such an individual will have a sense of belonging. They are close to their family members. They have close friends. They are close to teachers, and they are also able to provide other people with support. This entity of lone ranger is an abnormality. It's not a characteristic of a good or emotional health. God made, we are made to function in a community, spiritually, culturally, you name it. So when someone says, I'm alone, I don't want family, I don't want friends, I don't want teachers, I don't want to be supported by other people, and I can't afford to support other people, is a testament to a negative core belief. A lot has happened in childhood that has given this individual a need to be individualistic and do things all on their own because probably in childhood there was no one they could rely on. When they relied on people, They were sorely disappointed. Then another characteristic is that there's a sense of purpose. They recognize that they have a value and importance as a person, and this allow them to set and reach goals. These individuals, they are not clueless of what to do with their life. They may not have the ultimate idea, but they don't wake up and they are wondering, what do I do with my life? There's a general sense of purpose. It could be little, but there's that sense of purpose that allows them to set and reach goals. It could be small, small goals, but they don't say their life is purposeless. They don't feel their life is meaningless. Another characteristic is that they have a positive outlook. They see things from the bright side of life, and this generally will reduce stress and increases their chances of success. Picture again that guy, that individual that comes to the motor park and starts to insult you. Someone who sees things from the brighter side of life would, of course, imagine he must have had a bad day. This is not about me. That naturally, that individual refuses to be stressed by such a situation, and could even end up making friends with this individual who came to shout at him. You understand what I mean? Okay. Then self-sufficiency is they have the confidence to make responsible decisions, and this will usually promote their sense of independence and self-assurance. These are grown adults who are not running back home, who are not running to daddy, running to mommy for the littlest of decisions. You need to pay house rent, you need to get a house, and you need to ask your parents if it's a good decision as a grown man, as a grown woman with a wife and children. Something could very well be wrong. It shows that this individual is not self-sufficient. Then they would also have healthy self-esteem. Having healthy self-esteem would allow people to accept and recover from difficulty and failures. Difficulty and failures then will not define them. Someone gets a bad grade in an exam. It was just a singular incident. It doesn't define them. But when someone gets a bad grade and believes I am a failure, I am I am not good enough, I will never do well, and sinks into depression from there, self-esteem is altered. It's not a healthy self-esteem. Some early symptoms of mental health illness would include persistent feeling of sadness, difficulty concentrating. Those will be people that would ask you repeatedly, what was I saying? What did I last say? Where did I stop when you're holding a conversation? That could also be a student who zones out in class and the lecture finishes and almost like a 30 minutes absence was physically there or had mentally checked out. That could also be a student who goes from page 1 to 20 or page 1 to 10 and does not know how he flipped from page 1 to 10 and has to go back again to study it. And then, of course, sleeping problems generally, especially in the younger ones. Most elderly people in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s, because they're not that physically active, could have some challenges sleeping. Some, not a very bad one. But under 60, you're still physically active. Ordinarily, you should be able to rest from being exhausted all day and you still find that you can't sleep. It could be a pointer to some mental health illness, because what will keep people awake many times is thoughts, worries. Eventually, they are even thinking thoughts without being aware they're thinking thoughts. So they've activated so much fight and flight response, and the body just cannot shut down. Then paranoia is just general negative thoughts, negative assumptions. You think the worst case scenario in every situation. That could be a symptom of mental health illness. Then anger management issues. Those who fly off the handle at the slightest of provocations. Those who have rage issues. That is a symptom of a mental health disorder, because such individuals are suppressing so much pain that they have not really gotten in touch with. So the pain then shows up as anger. It's commoner in men because men in our society, sadness, fear is said not to be manly. So this is switched to anger, and by the time it explodes, it always blew out of proportion to the stimulus that ignited it. Then, of course, excessive use of alcohol or drugs, substances of abuse, it shows that something is wrong. Because alcohol and drugs are oftentimes coping mechanism for um, emotional burdens, for mental burdens. They just want to check out. They just want to clear their mind. They just want to at least put the thoughts to rest so they can sleep. So I would usually be interested in backpedaling a bit. What is overwhelming you so much that you need a lot of alcohol or substances of abuse, drugs, smokes, and things like that to cope with? It shows that some mental health disorders could be in place. Then excessive fears and worries, extreme mood swings, people that you literally cannot predict their mood. They're happy today, then in 4 hours' time they've dipped into some depth of sadness that you're trying to reach them. It shows that there could be some mental disorders on the way or smoldering. Then suicidal thinking, suicidal ideation, just thinking of, let me just end it all. The life is not worth living. What's the point of my being here? I may as well think and call it quits. And playing with suicide thoughts, something is definitely wrong with such an individual's mental health. Then inability to cope with stress generally, cope with the daily stress of life, daily stress of work, daily stress of family. You find that you're always overwhelmed repeatedly, persistently. It could be a symptom or a pointer to the fact that something is going on mentally. Still, some common warning signs that I may not have mentioned. Feelings that have said that, trying to harm or end one's life, then severe out of control risk taking behavior that can cause harm to self or others, then suddenly experiencing overwhelming fears for no reasons, sometimes with racing heart, physical discomfort, or difficulty in breathing. It could come as panics, it could come as palpitations, and it's sudden, it's overwhelming, it's repeated. Something could be going on that your flight or flight response has just kicked in because you have a lot of mental and emotional burdens that have not been processed. Then significant weight loss or weight gain that is not physically related, that is not from a physical health disorder, is worth examining. Then when an individual begins to see, hear, or believe that things are not real, that definitely is a warning sign. Of course, I already mentioned this excessive use of alcohol and drugs, drastic change in mood, behavior, personality, or sleeping habits, difficulty concentrating or staying still, then intense worry or fear that gets even in the way of such an individual's daily activity. So, what are the risk factors that are believed to be associated with mental health disorders in the child and in the family? Risk factors in the child is usually genetic influence. Coming from a family where they have mental health disorders, there's a potential genetic influence of developing such, having a low IQ, learning disabilities, specific delay with development of someone who is neurodivergent, autistic spectrum disorders, attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia, and the likes. Then communication difficulties, someone who stammers, they are at risk of such. Those who have difficult temperament, physical illness, prolonged physical illness in a child who gets hospitalized for a whole year. That was a very traumatic event because in that year, nurses and medical personnel are poking, are prodding. It's a strange environment. The child cannot go out to play. At the end of that 1 year, that child has been traumatized, can set the child at risk for a mental disorder later in life. Academic failure, those who have some intellectual challenges and they're struggling with school. Then low self-esteem. Self-esteem oftentimes is built at home. So a child whose self-esteem has been battered by over overly critical parent would eventually grow up to feel I'm not good enough, I'm not worth something, there's nothing I do that will be right. So such an individual could be at risk of a mental disorder later in life. Then in the family, of course, overt parental conflict, including domestic violence, a child who witnessed the parent fighting, who witnessed the mother being beaten on a very frequent basis. The home front already feels unsafe, and the child believes, I am not safe in the world. The world is not a safe place. People don't love themselves. People don't love me. And a whole barrage of some very complex and very negative core beliefs, which will influence their perception to things, would influence their emotional reactions to stimulus, and of course their behavior, and ultimately how they carry themselves in life. Then family breakdown, including where children are taken into care or adopted. Um, that could be a marriage that breaks, and then the children are shared among extended families, who of course in our environment, some will do a good job, some will not do a very wonderful job. The child comes out thinking, I am not important, I am not part of a family, I am not loved, I am not wanted. So an adult with this complexity of core beliefs, how do you expect them to be about their business, to be about their day in the world? Then inconsistent and unclear discipline in home. Hostile and rejecting relationship, parents who are really frozen because they themselves were never shown love, were never shown warmth. So they grow up and they don't know how to relate with their children. And their plan is, I provide for your feeding, I provide for your accommodation, I put a shelter over you, and you're good. No emotional connection whatsoever, no relationship whatsoever with the children. The children cannot grow up and feel loved. It's not possible, it's not magical. Then failure to adapt to a child's changing needs is also some potential risk factors. So now what are protective factors? A child who has an outgrowing temperament as an infant, who is happy, who is gaily, is all again oftentimes a testament to the parent having done a good job. That's what we equip the child, because children again come as a clean slate. So the parents must have equipped and must have been intentional, whether they know what they're doing or not to dampen such a child's spirit. So a child who has such an outgoing temperament, that's a protective factor for mental health, because they have support, they're able to rally around people for support, they're able to communicate distress and things that they're struggling with. Generally, they don't keep things to heart, things will roll off their shoulders, and many times such an individual will grow up with more positive core beliefs than negative ones. Then someone with good communication skills who is highly sociable. Then being a planner and having a belief in control could also be positive. A good sense of humor could be positive. Positive attitude, faith and spirituality, then ability to reflect. These are all protective factors for mental health. So now a little on dysfunctional family. How does our family of origin impact our mental health? Excuse me. A dysfunctional family is essentially a family in which conflict, misbehavior, or even abuse on the part of individual members of the family occur continually, leading other members to accommodate such actions. And children sometimes grow up in such families with the understanding that such an arrangement is normal. That's why people who come from a dysfunctional family and tell you they had a wonderful childhood. The father was an alcoholic, the mother would physically abuse, would whip with belts, would whip with the belt of grinding machine, and all sorts of insanities. Dysfunctional families are most often the result of either alcoholism, substance abuse, or other addictions of the parents. It could also be from the parent untreated mental illness or defects. A parent who has a bit of psychosis, who has anxiety, who has depression, who has bipolar disorder, who has rage, who has anger issues. Over personality disorders. And sometimes the parents are just emulating their own dysfunctional parents and their own dysfunctional family experiences because they didn't tell you this is how we were raised and we turned out fine. So why should I not raise my child like that? No, it isn't. A dysfunction is a dysfunction. Even if it has gone on for 10 generations, the day we know better, we do better. And there are six major types of dysfunctional family. There's the chaotic family where there's never peace. There's always drama. Neighbors are always coming to ask what happened again. Then there's the conflict driven family. There's a conflict driven family which they just have fights. There's the abusive families, those are the physically abusive. They will beat the living daylight out of the child. They will insult and abuse the child emotionally till the child goes to rethink their destiny and their importance at home or in life generally. And those are the same families where sexual abuse will thrive, where incest will thrive. Then there's the pathologic families. These are families with disorders. They have psychiatric issues. They have mental health disorders generally. Then emotionally neglectful families. These ones may look like the picture perfect because I mean the money is there, the parents are hardworking, they have a lot of needs, but there is no emotional connection. So it's just money that runs things. Then there's the overly protective family where it's almost like the world revolves around the children. So the children have never been allowed to explore. They cannot gauge safety because it's the parents that gauge safety for them. So such children from an overly protective family would believe that it's not safe because the parents have engraved in their mind that it's not safe by their overprotection. Now there's an entity called adverse childhood experience scoring, and it's said to increase the risk of child and adolescent mental health conditions, even adult mental health conditions. And these are the things that are considered to say that a child had an adverse childhood. If a parent had a mental illness of any sort, depression, anxiety, psychosis, you name it, whatever mental illness that a parent had, because such a parent cannot be present, such a parent cannot be attuned, such a parent cannot be the best. And such a parent is at risk of traumatizing their own children. So such a childhood was said to be adverse. Then parental substance abuse, substance misuse, alcoholism, excessive cigarettes, excessive substances of abuse, being a looked after child, a child that was taken out of their own family and um, given to another family for rearing. Being a looked after child, that's like, you know what I mean. So such a child, many times would have thought of, I am not part of this family, and may not really be emotionally rooted to any family. They are at risk of developing mental disorders. Then being from a low income household because of many challenges that a low income household will face. Then parental breakup or family discord. Before any divorce, before any breakup, the house was on fire. There was tension going on. And there's this little 4 5 year old who witnessed this every day and cannot process it, does not know who to share with, and will just bottle up all of these negative emotions inside. Then domestic violence or abuse in the home is also still an adverse childhood experience. Then bullying is an adverse childhood experience. Now, the more an individual has, the higher the chance of a mental health condition. It's not that one has one and automatically they will develop a mental health disorder. It is the more, coupled with the personality, coupled with whether there was a presence or an absence of an empathic witness to support that child while all of this was going on, that determines if they would later on come to be a mental health disorder or not. So, what are some effects of growing up in a dysfunctional family? There's a disrupted sense of trust in yourself, in others, and in the world. They usually will have difficulty dating and forming healthy relationships. Even marriages, many times, could be a bit rocky because they have attachment disorders. They're at increased risk of using alcohol and drugs. They're at increased risk for psychiatric disorders, anxiety, panic, depression. They generally will have a low self-esteem, which could manifest as bullying, could manifest as antisocial behavior, could manifest as many things. Then they could have difficulty in maintaining employment. They struggle to set and hold boundaries. They generally feel uncomfortable experiencing and managing their emotions because the home front that was the bedrock that should have equipped them to be able to experience, contain, and manage emotions was on fire while they were growing up. Excuse me. Then there's increased risk of having their own dysfunctional family because there's multi-generational dysfunction. Many people would raise a dysfunctional family, also grew in some form of dysfunction or disorder, and then by the time they partner with a spouse who also came from dysfunction, she brings her own dysfunction, he brings his own dysfunction, and then the two of them come together to raise another lineage of dysfunctionality. So how can we increase our mental health resilience? First is, if we say the physical health is related to the spiritual health, is related to the mental health. If my mental health will be studied, then my physical and spiritual health must be well taken care of. That will be exercise, that will be sleep. Exercise has been found to produce a lot of feel-good hormones, serotonin, dopamine. Those are hormones that give you a positive boost mentally and emotionally. Sleep would also produce some of these hormones, serotonin especially. A healthy diet. It said that let your food be your medicine so that your medicine will not be your food. What you eat is literally who you are. Then mindfulness practices like contemplation, sitting with our emotions, exploring them, because many people were not allowed to feel emotions as children. A 4-year-old will be told, wipe your face. Don't you know that big boys don't cry? A 4-year-old is not a big boy. A 4-year-old is a toddler. So that such a child grows into a grown man at 30, at 40, and feels shedding tears as a sign of weakness. So there will be experiences that would really give him pain to the core of his being. But he can't feel it because it's been ingrained from childhood that you don't go there. So contemplation allows you to sit with what is, with what you're experiencing in the moment. Then journaling is also like the same way physical exercise is physical training. Journaling is like a form of mental health training. It allows your thoughts to have some congruence. It builds new pathway. It allows us to develop some focus. Then it also reduces the florid thoughts that people would have when they are seated, just consumed by thoughts and worries. Then meditation, mindful meditation is said to be very beneficial. If you happen to watch this lecture on my YouTube page, there is a playlist created to mindfulness, guided meditation, and the likes. You may want to check it out. You would probably find them beneficial. Then learning the art of being present, being in the now. Truth is the only thing we have is now. If you ask me what is happening here, regardless of the time or whatever location you're watching this from, the only thing that is happening is you watching a recording of a PowerPoint presentation. Nothing else is happening. Any other thing is happening in your head and is all a lie. And it takes you away from the present. So learning the act of being present. What is happening here now? I'm holding a presentation. What is happening here now with you? You're listening to a presentation. That is all there is. So the worries of all the other things that need to be done at a later date, leave them at the door. When the time comes for them, you pick them up and handle them one thing at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. And of course, gratitude. It said that the tree you water will grow, the plant you water will grow. If we water complaints, negativity, negative core belief, negative emotion, those are the things that will grow. But if we water gratitude, gratitude means you are seeing the positive in most things. You end up experiencing more positive emotions, you build more positive core beliefs, and generally life goes towards the better side. Then taking up pleasure, what do you do for fun? Aside from what you do for work, what do you do for pay? what you do academically. Everybody must have a fun activity that again will still release this positive feel good hormones, dopamine, serotonin, all these hormones that make us feel wonderful. Fun, leisure must be incorporated into every part of our life. Then building high quality friendships and relationships. No man is an island. I said it earlier, ability to interact with family, with friends, and have a general rapport with people is a marker of a very good mental health. So if cultivating one of such is a marker, it will serve to build mental health resilience on the long run. Then sharing emotions with trusted persons. Emotions don't die. It's just that we will sweep them under the carpet. And by the time they will show up pressed down, shaking together. What do I mean? Someone angered you, someone annoyed you, you bottled up the emotion, you didn't express it constructively. The day you will choose to express it, either to that individual or to another person, it will come as a rage. So you're giving a reaction to what happened today, but you've combined it with what happened last week and last month and last year. Your reaction would always be out of context with the stimulus that induced it. So learning to share emotions with trusted person is one way of building mental health resilience. Then of course spending time in nature. I know it's a modern age where the need for nature is beginning to reduce, but nature has been found to be highly beneficial for our health in general, both physically um, and emotionally, mentally. Nature could be you go to parks, you go to an amusement park, you go to farm, you go to just a place where there's nature, you go to beach, you get in contact with nature. It's found to be highly beneficial. Then for those who are surviving, who are struggling, or those who are in crisis on the mental health spectrum, please seek out the help of a counselor or a therapist or a psychiatrist, as the case may be. Don't bottle it all in. If you need help, please speak out. If you have a fractured knee or a fractured leg, you will not bottle it in. You will speak out. The same way, if you're struggling mentally, please speak out. Reach out to people for help. And the importance of therapy in mental health is I like this picture so much because this picture says 1,000 words. So this is the individual that need therapy. You can imagine the weird mix of thoughts in the mind that is mumbled up without a headway. The act of speaking it out with a therapist, a counselor, allows to put a neat and a concise pattern to the thoughts that is beneficial to you and would eventually come to resolve the issue and equip you with the ability to be able to do this for yourself. There's something called interpersonal neurobiology. This is what happened here. We are wired together. We're wired together to function in community, to function in unit, to function in groups, to function in relationships. A very good therapeutic relationship does this and does it beautifully well. So, in conclusion, mental health is as important as physical health. I can't say that enough. But it is more complex than physical health, and it will ultimately affect physical and social health if it goes awry. As often said, prevention, protection is always better than a cure when it comes to physical health, when it comes to mental health. Thank you for spending this time with me. Wishing you a wonderful day. This presentation was brought to you by this counseling and psychotherapy service, and these are the services we offer. Have a wonderful day. Bye.